Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis. Although most of the cars I source are between £1,000 and £5,000, very often I've been asked to show something a little bit cheaper on the channel, and so I came up with No Budget Reviews, the series where we look at cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and you can enjoy driving. We don't film this in an expensive manner, we don't use separate microphones, we don't use dual head tripods, we don't even use a DSLR, but we do have a lot of fun.
Well, viewers, a rare sight today. This is a 1994 Fiat Punto. This is a 1.275 ELX model. It's actually a very early car, this. Registration date's about May 1994, but it was actually built in January 94. Some Puntos were released to the market in 1993, but definitely not over here. The suspicion of this one is that it's actually a sort of pilot build one that was either supplied to a dealership or something like that for technical or sales training and then not registered until later, or it was actually supplied to Fiat UK themselves for like a sort of closed sort of customer clinic type thing, or released to the press in a closed event. The Mark I Punto suffers from one terrible issue, and it's actually not this patch here. This is far from a perfect car, of course, and the owner of this car, whose name is Mr. Bushby, well, he has another one of these which is I think in better condition, but mind you, this isn't too bad for something that was found in a pub car park. The biggest problem with them is the floor. The floors rot really badly, and these actually were prone to head gasket failure back in the day as well. It wasn't just the K series that had problems with that, there were other engines. This is a sort of, I'd say a sort of second generation fire engine. The first ones came out in 1985 with the Uno, and they're actually still being made today for the Abarth 695 and 595, or just at the end of their life. So a very long-lived engine, but in this sort of form they did blow head gaskets, which wasn't too much fun really. So if we go round to the back, the ELX was towards the top of the trim levels at the time. The horsepower output was actually put on the back. It's a PS horsepower actually, because it has about 73 horsepower, not 75. The PS is slightly different from the BHP. You have to use the key to open up the boot, which is annoying. But, you know, Mark III Fiesta was like that on a lot of trim levels, and the Mark III Fiesta was still very much in production in 1994, so it wouldn't have been unusual with people. So the colour is called Rosso Bright. Still original stickers on here, so we've not had a rear end. We've not had a rear end collision or anything. Electronic radio and anti-theft system. Safety warranties and use exclusively original spares. Per ragione di sicurezza di garanzia, I think it's garanzia, impeggiare solo ricambi originale. Probably butchered that, viewers. I don't have a qualification in Italian. I did a degree in French and German, so if I got that wrong, I apologise. There we go, full-size spare in there, which is nice. Ooh, and we've got some wiper blades that are going to be put in as well. So quite a big boot actually, especially compared with something like the Fiesta. It's a bit smaller because I've got this big load lip, but that's common even in cars, you know, these days of this sort of class. So don't lock the key in the boot. We've got a blue key. Later ones of these will have the famous kind of brown and red and blue keys, which, like, you must not lose the master key on any account, otherwise you are screwed. So we're okay with this one. Certainly one of the things that would appeal to somebody buying one of these cars in 1994 is the fact that it's really easy to get in and out. Just move my bag out of the way. It's very wide doors. I do need to go back slightly actually. This Gavin's driving position rather than mine. That's a little bit too far forward for me, but it's okay. So yeah, headroom's pretty good. I'm right up against the roof, but you know, you can fit 4 6-foot people in here, probably with no real issues. No no rear armrest in here, no door cards, sorry, no door bins. You've got ashtrays because it's an Italian car from the 1990s, and yes, people still are very much into sort of smoking, that kind of tone public. Not been to Italy for a few years. Maybe they still are. I don't know. Grab handles, which wasn't guaranteed in every car. I mean, like I've worked out that the Mark III, Mark IV Panda that's still on sale, the grab handles in the back are an option, which is ridiculous. But there we go. Yeah, winding windows in the back, quite nice trim. It's sort of nicer than quite a lot of cars of this type and of this time. Reminds me of something like a Corsa B. That's quite hard wearing trim in those as well. That's just pretty good, really. It's very easy to get in and out, incredibly easy. Comparison with something like a Fiesta or something like that. Yeah, it's really easy. So, the luxurious driver's accommodation. We've got a seat height adjuster on this one, which I've put down to the floor like I normally do in most cars I drive. Ignition barrel here. Don't know why that little button's on there, because I just pulled the key out and it was fine. But, you know, never mind. Nice clear instruments. Weirdly, this car's got no power steering, despite being ELX, because it's a really early car. It doesn't have power steering. It does, however, have a cassette player, and it's a Fiat branded one. So the Fiat brand is very tiny, but it's just there. And it was playing Lady by Mojo earlier on, which is, you know, about 2000, I think that song came out. So somebody would have definitely been listening to that in this car after a few years of ownership. Stalks feel a little bit wobbly, because typical kind of 90s Fiat. But everything else feels like a significant sort of upgrade from what came before. I will be looking at an Uno at some point. I can't drive it, unfortunately, but would appear Mr. Bushby has an Uno. So we'll be having a look at it, although it's got no current MOT, so we can't drive it, but we can have a look at it, so we will be doing that later. Only done 55,000 miles, which is superb. Driving position is not too bad. It's not sort of like the kind of earlier Italian cars, like an Alphacid or something like that. Down here, yeah, got a massive ashtray, of course. I mean, we've got a space for, I don't know what that would be for. It's not really for cassettes exactly, because there's no slots for them, but you could put them in there, I suppose. This one came out in 1994. Just trying to think. Can't remember at the moment. I would have known a lot of music at the time, but yeah. Insert your favourite album from 1994 in cassette form. Normal handbrake, of course. Yeah, massive adjustment of the steering in the driving position, although because this has got an electric sunroof, which I'm not going to open because I'm really funny about electric sunroofs on old cars, I have a little bit less headroom than I thought. One of the things that people used to say about was how spacious they were, and yeah, for standards of the time, it's very spacious. And I've even got a footrest actually down there, which is very nice for going down the autostrada. But you know, there we go. Right, that's a bit useless. The things in there are just going to fall straight out. But we have got some door pockets, and again, we've got the sort of typical Fiat plastic from the 90s. It's just the way it goes, but steering itself feels okay. I wish it was leather wrapped, but it isn't. Again, a very early car, so no driver's airbag. Okay, let's have a look under the bonnet at the fire engine. Ooh, gotta be careful. Pericolo. Yeah. Cam belt engine, multi-point injection. Very, very proud of that sort of thing. It looks a little bit like the engine cover in a Yugo Sona, but it's a completely different engine. That's the Lampredi engine. This is the fire engine. I shouldn't really call it the fire engine, viewers, because I'm basically saying engine, but it's a lot easier to say it, so I'm going to continue. Very, very weird oil filler cap. Olio. Dipstick there. I've got some cam cover gasket leaks, pretty normal. Quite a lot of room in here. I mean, you could fit up to 1.6 litre engines in these, and you can see there's the oil filter just down there. Probably coming from the bottom, but if you wanted to change that, I imagine. yeah, I expected this car to look, you know, really quite cramped under here, but it just doesn't. It just shows how far cars have come in the last 28 years. There's one of the control modules there. The brake servo is right in front of the driver, so there's no remote servo, which is good. No power steering in here, which you know, I would probably prefer, but it's okay. It's not too bad. It's not a Mark II Polar or anything. Yeah, I think it is actually a reasonably stylish front as well. The Fiat Palio, which was a sort of worldwide car based on this platform, also looked very much like this. We never got that in this country, actually. Yes, I think what we need to do as well is actually take a look in here and see if the glove box hold my secret mission documents. Right, viewers, here we go. No. No! I'm getting so excited. It's got cup holders and a complete empty glove box. I'll have to go in there. It's really strange heating controls here. Got front fog lights on here as well, so 2 fog light switches. Bit unusual, but practical. Car would have had air conditioning in some market. It was an option in this country, but this car doesn't have it. I think that would have been the traction control if this was a GT, but don't seem to quite know that. Look at these air vents, they're sort of weird as well. Right, time for me to stop babbling and let's go for a drive. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. Right, viewers, off we go. Little drive out in the Chilterns, which is most pleasant. We're just coming out of this car park, which is why the surface is probably terrible. The mount will be fine though. So the Mark I Punto had a base engine with 53 horsepower. It's a 1.1, badges as 55. Then the 1.2 with I think just a single point fuel injection, that only had 60 horsepower, badges as 60. Then we have this, which was the 3 brake horsepower version, badges as 75, also an 8 valve 1.2 unit. Later on there was a 16 valve version of this engine with 86 horsepower. I think it was though badged as 85. That replaced, I think for the 1997 facelift, a 1.6 8 valve Lampredi engine. Lampredi was the sort of predecessor in some ways to the fire engine. That one developed about 90 horsepower, or 88. Then there were the engines for the GT. But actually, it's a 1.4 fire unit developed between 131 and 134 horsepower, depending on the year before the facelift. But after the facelift, 129 horsepower. I imagine that's due to what would be Euro 2 emissions regulations. There are also some diesels available, but as usual, due to controversial government legislation and all kinds of other reasons, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. We do talk about the trim levels. There was an S, SX, ELX, and then some of the sort of funny ones like the Sporting and the GT. On a 1.1 engine, you can actually get a 6-speed gearbox, which is bizarre, but there we go. Probably people who want to pretend that they're Michael Schumacher but can't afford the insurance for, you know, a Ferrari or something like that. There's also the Selector, which is a CVT gearbox. This 5-speed manual's perfectly fine. One thing it doesn't tell you to do is push down to get to reverse, because you actually have to do that. But you know, that'd be better really. But there we go. It's drive. The steering in this car, I think just this particular car, just feels a little bit loose. It just probably needs tightening up slightly. There's not actually quite as much feel as I thought there'd be, considering this car hasn't got power steering. But it's fine, you know. It feels an awful lot more modern than something like a Mark III Fiesta, that's for sure. The gearbox is probably slightly nicer as well than a Corsa B. The engine feels willing enough. 0 to 60 in this car is about 12 seconds. Sort of typical of kind of maybe just a 1.4 engines back in the day. Suspension's it's okay on this very, very bumpy road. I don't know why it's quite as bad as this, but it is. But yeah, it is still good fun, even though the steering is just a little bit lighter than I thought it would be. But you know, for a lot of you that's not really an issue, and certainly it's not like, you know, very modern cars. You can also buy a Bertone Cabrio version of this, and there's one prominently used in Bugs, which is the series that I tend to talk about when you know, I think I can control my rage about 1990s television, but sometimes I can't. And Jay Griffiths drove a yellow, would have been probably an ELX cabriolet during the first season of Bugs, after her Peugeot 205 gets destroyed in the first episode. I think Mr. Richardson Furious Driving actually used to have one, rather his lady wife had one of those. Yeah, brakes feel good actually. The fact we've got a non-remote servo in this is really sort of helping in that way. So viewers, the original Fiat Punto, is this a car that you should consider for your hard-earned budget of up to £1,000? Well, if you're nostalgic about these cars, you know, you can find one that's not rotten, hasn't had a head gasket failure, and you know, someone's actually done the cam belt on time, then I don't see why not. Even without power steering, they're actually quite easy to drive. They feel quite modern. Some of the interior plastic is typical 1990s Italian car, which is no surprise. Some of you will find that positively charming anyway. So there we go. I'm not sure this is exactly me. There's other cars of the 1990s probably that I would prefer over one of these, but I do understand the appeal, and it is quite a lot of fun actually. This I was surprised just how much fun these are. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching this episode of No Budget Reviews. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we'll see you again soon for more low-cost motoring.